Have you ever felt like your kids are holding on to you, not with hugs or long phone calls, but in quieter, more complicated ways? Maybe they've drifted from your daily life. They don't visit much. They've built lives of their own. And yet there's still this invisible cord tying them to you. A hesitation in their voice. A reluctance to truly step away. You sense it in how they react when you try to give them more space, or when you suggest they don't need to worry so much about you anymore. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? To love them so deeply, want them to fly free, but also to notice they can't quite let you go. Even when they seem uninterested, even when they forget your birthday or cancel that weekend visit, there's something that keeps them circling back. Maybe not in the ways you want, but they don't completely walk away either. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because this isn't just about aging or parenting. This is about understanding the emotional landscape between you and your children, why they struggle to let go of you, even when they act like they already have. Now, before you start blaming yourself or thinking something went wrong along the way, I want you to know this. What you're experiencing is more common than you think. It's not a flaw. It's not a sign of failure. It's part of the emotional evolution that happens as we grow older and our roles shift. When they're no longer your little ones and you're no longer the center of their daily world, but you're still the foundation beneath it. So let's take a deeper look at this. Let's explore why, even when they're not calling every week or asking for advice, your presence still anchors them in ways they might not even realize. And why letting go, for them, is harder than they let on. Sometimes it starts with something simple. Maybe you tried to downsize your home, maybe you talked about moving into a retirement community, or making changes that would give you more freedom, and their reaction surprised you. They got nervous, maybe even a little upset. They said things like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Or, "Don't do anything drastic." And you thought, why do they care so much when they barely show up anyway? Here's the first truth. Your presence gives them a sense of stability, even when they don't acknowledge it. You are, quite literally, the emotional lighthouse they keep in their peripheral vision. As long as you're where you've always been, doing what you've always done, they feel grounded, even from a distance. It's the comfort of knowing that some things don't change, even when everything else in their lives is shifting. Their jobs may be chaotic. Their marriages may have tension. They may feel like the world is too much some days. But if mom's still in the old house, if dad still answers the phone the same way, then life still has structure. And that leads into something else. They're still emotionally tied to who they were around you. Not necessarily the adult version of themselves that they present to the world, but the child they used to be. When they visit, when they see your face, it stirs something familiar. Maybe not consciously, but deeply. You're a reminder of who they were when they were less burdened, when someone else made the decisions and they were allowed to just be. Letting you go, even just mentally, can feel like letting go of a part of their identity. And that's not easy. You may not see it, but you hold a mirror to their youth. Even if they're grown, with their own children and mortgages and retirement plans, your very presence reminds them of a time when life felt simpler, even if it wasn't. It's a nostalgic comfort, and letting that go means fully stepping into the uncertainty of adulthood, without a net. And while they may not need you the way they used to, they're still afraid of what it would mean to lose you completely. And here's another layer to it: guilt. That silent, heavy kind that settles in when they're lying in bed at night. They think about how they haven't called in 2 weeks, how they meant to stop by but didn't, how they snapped at you during the holidays. They might not show it on the surface, but deep down, there's a part of them that feels like they're failing you. And that guilt keeps them tethered. Not in a healthy, loving way all the time, but in a complicated emotional loop. That loop can make them do odd things. They might pull back when they feel too guilty. They might act defensive or distant, not because they don't care, but because they care too much and don't know how to fix it. Sometimes the weight of guilt makes them avoid you, Because facing you means facing their own discomfort about not being the child they think you deserve. Now I know you might be thinking, but I don't need them to do all these things. I just want them to be happy. I want to know they're okay. And that's the beauty of a parent's heart, isn't it? You don't need performance. You don't need them to show up with flowers or long apologies. You just want peace between you. But for them, the pressure to be a good son or a better daughter can be overwhelming. And that emotional pressure is another reason they can't let you go. They stay connected, not out of obligation, but because you still represent something sacred. Even if they don't call as often as they should, even if they forget to say thank you, they're still navigating how to carry the weight of loving you, growing apart from you, and honoring you all at once. That's not an easy road. And let's not forget one more quiet truth. Many children are terrified of your mortality. It's not something they'll say out loud. They won't admit it in conversation. But it's always there, under the surface. A fear that one day, you won't be there anymore. So instead of talking about it, they cling in subtle ways. They try to control your choices. They push back when you become more independent. They resist when you say you're ready to let go of certain routines or responsibilities. It's not because they think you can't manage. It's because the idea of losing you is too big to face. So they try to freeze time. Keep you where you've always been. Just close enough to feel safe, but far enough that they don't have to face their fears. You see, even when your children act like they've moved on, like they don't need you as much anymore, the truth is, they do. But not in the same way they used to. It's more emotional now, more hidden. It's in the background of their lives, not the foreground. But it's still there, still powerful, still very real. And understanding this doesn't just give you clarity, it gives you peace. You don't need to chase them or fix their emotional distance. You just need to know that your presence matters more than you realize. Even when they don't say it. Even when they seem distracted. You're still the anchor in their storm. And now that we've opened the door to this complex emotional space, let's keep going. Let's explore more of what's really happening behind the silence, the short messages, and the subtle signs that they just can't let you go. There's a quiet moment that happens sometimes, after a birthday dinner, or a short visit, or even a phone call, and you can feel it. That pause. That sense that they wanted to say more but didn't know how. Maybe they smiled and told you they're fine. Maybe they hugged you a little longer than usual. But underneath, there's this lingering weight. And you feel it in your chest even after they've gone. That weight, whether they say it or not, is part of why they can't fully let you go. For many grown children, the older their parents get, the more they feel the gap between who they are now and the child they once were. And they don't always know how to bridge that. You're a living reminder of time, of how quickly it's passed, how much has changed, and how much they still wish they had time to fix or understand. That realization makes them cling to you, even when they don't show up the way you'd expect. But there's more to it than nostalgia or guilt. One powerful reason your children may struggle to let go, even as they seem distant, is that they're still figuring out how to feel safe in the world without your steady presence. Think about it. For most of their lives, you've been the one they leaned on. Maybe not always in words, but in structure, in values, in the rhythm of holidays and Sunday dinners, and call me when you get there. Even now, when they make big decisions about their health, their marriage, their career, your voice is still in the back of their minds. The things you taught them, the way you handled stress, the calm you offered in a storm, it's part of their foundation. So even if they don't run to you with every problem anymore, the idea of losing your guidance, even silently, feels like losing a compass. And compasses are hard to come by. And here's another truth that often goes unspoken. Sometimes they don't want to fully let you go because they still need your approval. Not in the way a teenager begs for praise. It's more subtle than that. It's a quiet yearning to know they've made you proud. That they've become someone you can trust, respect, and admire. And even if they never say it, that need doesn't disappear with age. It just gets quieter. And it shapes how they show up, or don't, in your life. They might visit less, not because they don't care, but because they're afraid of disappointing you. They may seem aloof not because they're cold, but because they don't know how to express their love in adult terms. Life doesn't come with an instruction manual for staying close to our parents once we're grown. And many people struggle with the awkwardness of love without dependency. How do you show up for someone you deeply care for without feeling like a child again? That's something they're still figuring out. And let's be honest, they also worry about you. A lot more than they admit. The world has changed. Healthcare costs, scams, loneliness. It's all on their minds. But they're juggling their own challenges too. Kids, bills, careers, health. Sometimes they feel like they're failing on all fronts. So instead of reaching out in thoughtful, connected ways, they check your Facebook page, or they ask a sibling how you're doing, or they text a simple, "How are you?" Because that's all they have energy for in the moment. It's not ideal. It's not what you deserve, but it's real. And it comes from a place of love, even when it looks like forgetfulness. And sometimes it's not just about how they feel about you. It's about how they feel about themselves. As your health changes or your needs shift, they're forced to face uncomfortable truths about aging, loss, and the cycle of life. And let's be honest, many people don't want to face that. So they resist. They make light of your doctor's appointments. They brush off your talk about wills or downsizing, not because they don't care, but because they're scared. Scared that one day they'll have to face a world where you're no longer there. So they cling in odd ways. They don't want to be too close because it's painful. But they don't want to be too far either, because that's terrifying. They live in a kind of emotional limbo. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And as frustrating as that can feel for you, try to remember, it's not about your worth. It's about their fear. And sometimes, that fear takes the shape of control. You've probably felt it, when they try to tell you what you should or shouldn't eat, where you should or shouldn't live, who you should trust. At first it might feel like they're overstepping, and in some ways, they are. But it often comes from a place of deep emotional panic. Trying to manage your choices gives them a false sense of security. It makes them feel like they still have some control over something they're terrified of losing. But here's the beautiful irony. The more independent and emotionally grounded you are, the more secure they actually feel. When you show them that you're not fading, but evolving, that you're still curious, active, thoughtful, full of life, they start to relax. Not completely. Not overnight. But they begin to trust that even if they're not right by your side, you're still strong. You're still you. So don't underestimate the power of being quietly consistent, of taking care of yourself, staying engaged, asking them about their lives, but also living fully in your own. That's the kind of strength that inspires. It calms their anxiety more than 100 phone calls ever could. And let's be real. Sometimes they need reminders too. Gentle ones. That you're not just their parent, but a person. With needs, boundaries, and a desire for peace. That it's okay for them to love you without needing to hover. That letting go doesn't mean abandoning. It means trusting. And that trust goes both ways. You may not get the perfect expression of love from them, but you can lead with grace, with strength, with clarity. And in doing so, you create space for them to love you better, in their own flawed human way. Because at the end of the day, the bond between a parent and a child isn't measured by the number of visits or phone calls. It's measured by presence, emotional presence. The way your memory, your voice, your lessons live on in their choices. And even if they don't say it, you are there. In the way they hold their children. In the way they face their fears. In the way they try, however imperfectly, to become someone worth your legacy. And that, more than anything, is why they can't let go. There's something powerful about realizing you are still shaping your children's lives, even now. Not by what you do for them, but simply by being who you are. You might not see it every day. They may not express it in ways you expect. But your presence, your very existence, is still shaping how they view themselves, their future, and even their past. Sometimes it's the little things that keep them emotionally tethered. The way you make that old family recipe no one else can get right. The way your voice softens when you say their name. The way you remember things they forgot about themselves, like that poem they once loved, or the time they got lost at the grocery store, and you made it feel like an adventure. Those memories, those emotional markers, live in them whether they acknowledge them or not. And for many adult children, the hardest part about letting go of a parent isn't the fear of physical absence. It's the fear that they will forget who they are without you. You've always been their witness, their history keeper, their quiet cheerleader. And no matter how grown they are, they carry a childlike need to know someone still sees them for who they were and who they're trying to be. Letting go of that, even slightly, can feel like losing part of their own soul. That's why they may react strongly when you talk about downsizing or simplifying your life. That's why they may suddenly care a whole lot when you bring up your will or future care plans. They're not just processing what's ahead for you, they're trying to make peace with what it means for themselves. And it's important to know that sometimes their hesitation comes from unfinished emotional business. Maybe there were things left unsaid, hurts from childhood that were never talked about, times when they needed more from you and didn't know how to ask. These loose threads don't always fade with age. They linger, and that lingering creates tension. They might stay close but emotionally guarded, or they might distance themselves while secretly longing for repair. Either way, it keeps them connected, whether they understand it or not. And here's something not often talked about. For some children, letting you go feels like letting go of the chance to fix something. Maybe they wanted to be closer. Maybe they dreamed of a different kind of relationship. Letting you go, even symbolically, can feel like closing the door on that dream. And that's not easy. That's not something people say out loud at the dinner table. But it sits there, quietly shaping how they show up or don't. So what do you do with all of this? First, recognize the depth of your influence. It's not about control or responsibility. It's about awareness. You're still a central figure in their emotional landscape. You don't need to perform for that role. You just need to be present, steady, and grounded in your truth. Second, give yourself grace. Parenting never really ends, it just changes shape. And while you may not be tying shoelaces or packing lunches anymore, you're still teaching them how to live, how to age, how to navigate uncertainty with strength. Every time you face a health challenge with courage, every time you pursue a new interest, every time you extend patience or set a boundary, you are still modeling resilience. And they're still watching. Third, offer them freedom without withdrawing your love. Let them know you're okay, that you're not falling apart, that you welcome connection but don't require it to feel whole. That's one of the most powerful gifts you can give: emotional permission. When they know you're living your life fully, not waiting for them to fill every gap, it takes the pressure off. It allows them to engage with you from a place of joy rather than obligation. And finally, don't be afraid to speak your truth gently. If something's bothering you, if you feel lonely or overlooked or unsure, find a way to say it with love, not blame. Sometimes adult children just need a nudge, a small reminder that you're still here and still human. Not a fixture in the background, but a full person with feelings, thoughts, and needs. The key is in the delivery. They'll hear you more clearly if your words come from hope, not hurt. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I've already lost the connection? What if the distance is too great? I want to say this clearly. It's never too late for repair. It may not look how you imagined. It may not be easy. But even a small shift, an honest letter, a quiet conversation, a shared memory can open doors you thought were closed forever. Sometimes the smallest gesture plants a seed that grows into something beautiful over time. You have more power than you think. Not to control your children's lives, but to inspire them. To lead them by example. To show them what it looks like to age with grace, to love without strings, to release without bitterness. And that kind of presence, that's unforgettable. So if you've been wondering why your children can't quite let you go, even when they seem disengaged, it's because you're woven into the very fabric of who they are. Your voice echoes in their decisions. Your love, even when imperfect, still reaches into their everyday lives. And your quiet strength gives them something to lean on, even when they don't say so. You matter. Deeply. You always have. And you always will. If this touched something in your heart, I want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments below. Tell us how your relationship with your children has changed and what you've learned along the way. Your words could help someone else feel seen today. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to the Strong Elderly Life channel. We've got so many more uplifting, insightful conversations coming your way, and I'd love for you to be part of this growing community. Here's to living your best life at any age. You're not done yet. You're just entering a wiser, more meaningful chapter. And your presence? It still matters more than you'll ever know.